You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
She's alive! Alive!
I am Dracula.
Hey, Monster Manor minions, we are back again with your second Monster Manor episode in 1 week. So this is kind of cool. And it's a real treat for me because, you know, being involved in special effects, makeup, and growing up reading the Fangorias and everything, I always had those films that inspired me and shaped me. And I'm excited that our guest tonight, Nick Benson, he was a big part of that. And I'm excited too because he's going to be at Fantasm Orlando this time next week. And we're going to get to see him live and in person. So Fantasm Orlando, if you're interested in checking out ticket prices, all of that stuff, the event is wholly laid out at phantasmofficial.com. But I proudly introduce to you an inspiration and hero of mine, Nick Benson. How are you doing?
Up in that intro, I got so wrapped up in that intro, I really wasn't paying that close attention.
Oh, all the monsters and stuff?
Yeah, that's cool.
Thank you. Yeah, we are a big monster. You know, that was one of the earliest memories I had was the Universal Monsters and being a monster kid. And probably, I would say, arguably the best time to be a kid because there was monster stuff all over the place. The Fangoria magazine, Famous Monsters of Filmland. Mm-hmm. All that stuff. Is that what shaped your career and coming up?
Kind of. I mean, like I kind of like my whole history is like I was a monster kid from a very early age. Mm-hmm. My mom was actually an executive at Universal.
Oh, lucky.
So I was a very lucky kid in that I got to immerse myself in that environment with the monsters, and I'd get to steal her golf cart and go drive by the Monster House almost any day I wanted to.
Nice.
So that was, that was a lucky thing for me.
Yeah. So that was your days. Is kind of you were christened early into monsters and special effects and all of that stuff.
Very much so.
Very cool. So what were some of the, like, I know we all had like childhood, kind of like mentors that kind of took us under their wings, and being out there in that area, you must have had plenty that you kind of shadowed.
Yeah, absolutely. I got really lucky, more of a right place, right time kind of thing. I had just come out of high school and started working as a apprentice film editor. Actually, started out as an apprentice film editor, but I moonlighted as a musician and played in a couple of bands, and so I was doing musical stuff, and then I wanted to do like really performance art heavy performances with my band, and I locked up with this guitarist named Sean Brennan, and he developed a band called London After Midnight, and I was sort of coming up with ideas for a stage show that we would be very theatrical.
Yeah.
And I would toss ideas. When I moved in with him, I didn't realize that I was getting two pretty incredible roommates. Sean's brother, Kevin Brennan, who worked for Rick Baker and like Stan Winston and stuff like that, and Boss Film. And the other roommate was Steve Johnson. So I literally got those guys 24 hours a day. I had access to those guys. So, I just probably pestered the shit out of him enough where he one day just said, "Why don't you come make Rubber Monsters?" So that's really how I kind of fell into it, more so than trained for it or decided that was what I wanted to do. There was no question in my mind when Steve asked me that. He said, "You want to come make Rubber Monsters?" Fuck
Yeah.
yes. Oh, excuse me.
We can leave it later.
It was it was it was just it was an awesome thing to have happen to me. I was in the right place at the right time, and I felt like those were my people,
Well, that's the thing, and I feel sorry for the generation that doesn't know Steve Johnson, because the thing is he was whoa.
I'm trying to
Things are moving. No, but Steve Johnson was such a renegade when it came to that stuff. He had such a peculiar eye, but he's responsible for everyone knows Rick Baker and Dick Smith and stuff like that. It's the hardcore people that know Steve Johnson and what he did, like for Ghostbusters and all of the films that he did. And
he ran Boss Films Creature Shop. I mean, he was in charge of Ghostbusters. He was in charge of Big Trouble. He did so many iconic things, and it was really surreal to move in with someone that I felt like was a rock star,
Yeah. I mean, he certainly by that time had quite a reputation already. So, I mean, just being in that think tank and being exposed to his way of thinking and everything, that must have been like overwhelming at times.
Absolutely. It was very overwhelming because, like, while he's super cool and like he was a great roommate, he was really cool to talk to. And it was like, talking to your favorite rock star about all your favorite things.
Yeah.
It was very surreal and a little intimidating, because he had such a huge, resume from that point. And, he invited me when he was opening Efects. He had just left Boss Film and was getting ready to open his own shop, and was at the time sharing a shop with Todd Masters, I believe, who's another name in the business that people should know.
Yes.
And they were sharing a shop at the time, and he invited me to come work on Night of the Demons. That was my first one.
Yeah, that was the first one?
Yes, sir.
So, okay, I got to ask you then, what was it like that first day you walk on into that shop and okay, this is a major movie? What was going through your head at that point?
I really was nervous. I was really nervous because I was around all of these, veterans of most of the guys in the shop there were all from Boss Film.
Yeah.
And they were all serious up and comers, and I was literally a nobody. He just pulled me out of the street basically. So it was really
Green Days.
yeah, it was really kind of intimidating, and to be around these guys and know the stuff that they had achieved so far. Yeah. And it was pretty incredible because you even had guys like Bill Corso, I think was on that crew.
Yeah.
Who is, Academy Award winning now. And it's crazy. I mean, it's just crazy.
Right. Well, I could imagine though, it doesn't matter what your experience is. When you're in the presence of people like that, you realize how little you know.
Yeah.
They show you real soon.
Yeah, really.
Yeah.
That's the truth.
So what were you doing when you first started there? Were you doing, like, they always joke about I'm cleaning brushes and sweeping floors. People nowadays don't understand that when you started working for a shop, everyone did that. It wasn't just the people.
No, absolutely. It was everybody. We had a shop cleanup time. Everybody cleaned up their stuff.
Yeah.
And it wasn't just, a guy like me that was the low man on the totem pole that would grab a broom. Everybody grabbed, there was 4 or 5 brooms. Everybody grabbed whatever they could and were doing what they could do to keep the shop clean. So it never felt like, it never really felt like there was really these egos or anything. It was just intimidating being that guy, knowing you're the low guy on the totem pole and knowing what these guys had done before. But not one of them in that shop ever made me feel, like low man on the totem pole. They all showed me what to do. If I didn't know what to do, they taught me. They really took me under their wing and like showed me everything. So it was really cool to be working in that environment.
Yeah, everything I've ever heard about Steve Johnson and the people that he worked with, it was such a different environment of no egos. They knew they were good. That was the thing, is they knew they were damn good, but they didn't have the egos.
Yeah, there were some pretty incredible artists there.
Yeah.
Made me feel like I couldn't do anything.
Yeah. So fast forward, like you're in that shop for say 6 months. You're
Mhm.
starting to get your legs now.
Mhm.
You know, what did you find yourself doing after a while you were in there and you started feeling more comfortable? Did they give you more stuff to do? I mean, obviously you are
Absolutely.
an amazing talent.
Absolutely. They really like it was even shorter time than 6 months. It was literally like trial by fire. Here, do this. This is how
Mm.
you're going to do it. I want you to do this. I want you to do that. I want you to clean this mold, or I want you to cast these teeth, or I want you to paint this. Like it was trial by fire. Do it, you know?
You said that was Night of the Demon, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, there were a lot of makeups, and they were all
Yeah.
like you described. I mean, those were amazing.
Yeah. So I like on that film, I got to, I mean, I had a, it was interesting because Steve and I recently spoke about this because my recollection of it was a little bit off. I had remembered that we used a different thing for the eyeballs than we did.
Mhm.
But we were doing this test head for when Linnea pushes his eyes out in the bathroom when she's with the guy in the bathroom.
Oh, I wish we had a
And
picture of that.
yeah, and she pushes her thumbs into his eye sockets and pops his eyeballs. So what that was, my recollection of it was we had had a conversation over lunch. I had my lunch there on the table, and I had this thing of grapes. And I remember saying, well, could we use grapes in there and make them pop because they pop nicely? And then, Steve, of course, took that and ran with it and said, you know what, we won't use grapes, but we'll use cherry tomatoes. And that's what we wound up using was cherry tomatoes. And in the test head, I think we used the grapes with a little
Yeah.
video thing of the test head that Bill Barstorff and Steve, and I got to work on that with those guys, and that was pretty incredible. Plus the lipstick gag, I got to work on that. I got to, like he threw me into everything he could to really, try to show me the ropes.
Yeah.
But I did everything from cleaning molds to castings to painting, and if I screwed up painting, it would go to somebody else to fix it. It was just like he
Yeah.
threw me into stuff to see how I would do, and I really, I appreciate that more today than I did at the time, because at the time I was, pretty much scared out of my gourd. But today I look back at that and I go, I wouldn't have the skills I have today if it wasn't for that.
Right. Right. And back then, and right before we went on, we were talking about that was the best time to be in special effects, because really there were no stations. Everyone had their specialty, but you really had to know everything. You had to know sculpting and the lab work and the
Yep.
application and cables. There was no CGI back then.
Right.
So you really did truly get to use everything at your disposal.
Yeah, and you were inventing things too as you went, because there's sometimes you'd get something that something that may have worked in the past, or some kind of effect that you're going to try a new material on or whatever. But we used household things all the time
Mm-hmm.
in those days. Now there's so many more materials these days than there ever were, but in those days, like, it was just like, think of something quick.
Yeah, yeah. And a
You had to
lot of it
really
was
think on your
off of the
feet.
shelf.
Yeah, you really had to think on your feet, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, I love that time and I romanticize it, but I know how hard it must have been. But you get to the end of that first movie. Of course, you have the celebration that you're done and everything. How long did you have to wait before that movie hit theaters?
Well, if I remember correctly, we had a hell of a wrap party for that movie. It was really fun.
I'm sure it was with Steve Johnson.
Yeah, it was pretty crazy. It was up in the Hollywood Hills. I remember, and the cast and crew were there. Kevin Tenney was there. It was like, it was a big deal.
Yeah.
That was a lot of fun. Although my opinion of the film at the time, and I don't know if Steve shared this opinion, but I thought, like, there was so much horror being made at that time.
Mm-hmm.
That, like, I thought Night of the Demons would maybe last 5 years, maybe, and be completely forgotten about in 5 years.
Yeah.
The way that they were churning out horror, I thought there's no way that anyone's going to remember this film. So I had no idea.
Yeah.
No idea. And, that just goes to show, how absolutely nuts that time in movie making was.
Right.
Because that story, it's campy, fun. It's got all the elements, you know. It
Oh,
is
yeah.
it is the epitome of 80s horror. It has the comedy portion, it has the sexy portion, it has
Yeah.
the the absolutely scared the crap out of you, you know,
Oh,
part
yeah.
of it. So I mean, it had all those elements, and it really even today, it's just amazing how many people absolutely love that original film.
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's kind of elevated even more than cult status, because you
Sure.
mentioned that their fans are just as fervent as, any, and it's
Yeah.
with good reason. I mean, it was a cool, again, it was a snapshot of the era. It was wonderful. Like
Yeah.
some movies you probably couldn't make today that would have the same magic. That one, Night of the Living Dead, things like that. They just couldn't capture that lightning in a bottle again.
Right. And as I recall too, if and I could be totally wrong, but if I remember correctly, I thought that it may have been Night of the Demons that they took and they drove across the country putting it in theaters, because there really wasn't anybody that had guaranteed distribution for them.
Right.
So yeah, they just drove across the country and dropped off prints.
Yeah.
I think that was the film, but it has really gotten to crazy status now. Like everybody knows that movie.
Oh, yeah. And you can see that a lot of people were influenced not only by the movie itself, but by the effects. You see that fingerprint on some modern movies, and even some like in the Clive Barker world. It's very interesting to see those ideas, come through.
Yeah, for sure. I know that for me, like having worked in that shop with the people I was working with, I knew that there was no way that the effects were ever going to look bad. There's just no way. Not with that group. So I was kind of, it's kind of like being the redheaded stepchild on the winning team, Yeah. I didn't think there was a way I could lose, period.
Yeah. Man. So let's fast forward to the actual release of the.
Real happy to be on that team.
Oh yeah, that's a happy team there.
Yeah, absolutely.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff going on in that picture.
So let me back up a little bit with my. I went from Night of the Demons to Dead Heat to Howling 4, and then that's when I interviewed with George, was after those. Mm-hmm. So chronologically, it was like I did a few films with Steve, and then there was a break in work, and I of course was panicking because I hadn't really had that type of deal before. I never had a stop. I had never had to stop and then where's my money coming from? So Steve just said, you know what, let me call Screaming Mad George and see if he's got any projects right now, and I'll send you over there. You can talk to him. Maybe he'll hire you. So getting used to that idea of being that independent contractor and going in with interviewing with these guys to work, I had no idea what that was going to be like. And my interview with George was like probably the best interview in the world for me, because he sat down at a lunch with me. He took me to lunch. He looked through my portfolio rather quickly, like the stuff that I had done for Steve, and he just kind of passed it back to me. And he started asking me questions like, okay, so what kind of art do you like? And I was really into Hieronymus Bosch and H.R. Giger at the time.
Yeah.
Pardon me. So, he was really happy to hear that, because George is a surrealist painter. I had no idea at the time. Very big Dali-esque kind of influence on his work. And, of course, Salvador Dali's in that list. So it was kind of like we had to talk about art, music. It was more about, that than anything else. He had looked at my stuff and just kind of pushed it aside and said, okay, what are the things you like? And we were so similar. He just hired me like right then and there.
Yeah.
So, and I, at that time I worked for George until I left LA, because I got along so well with George, and loved working with him and loved watching him work and be part of his environment. That was really, I felt more of a fit than I did with Steve.
Yeah.
So, I did really well over there. I excelled over there. I felt like I got in my groove.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was kind of like the time with Steve was your baby steps, and then by
Yes.
the time you got in with Screaming Mad George, it was like boom, whole new world.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So what were some of the films that you did under Screaming Mad that we would know here?
Well, let's see. I kind of went back and forth between both shops on Nightmare on Elm Street 4.
Yeah, that was remarkable. We do have some pictures of some of the things that from that.
Yeah, I bounced back and forth between both shops on that movie, and I worked for George. I want to say I came in at the end of. He was finishing Slither, I think. Is that what it was? I'm trying to remember. And he was getting ready to start Society. And his shop at the time was in the back of Berman Foam. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but that was all the back of Berman Foam. All of that stuff was the back part of their shop.
Yeah.
George rented it out, and we did Society at the same time the Bermans were doing Dick Tracy.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah. So it was an
fun,
interesting mix of things going on in there,
Yeah.
But yeah, so Society was sort of like, George was given huge creative license on that film and literally just threw stuff at me. So it was really wonderful to be in that environment, to feel like I was trusted to do, whether it was sculpting or mold making or, whatever. Like here, we have to turn this guy inside out, figure it out,
Yeah.
So that was really it. It was like, figured out.
I can't even imagine that must have been amazing. And the designs are just unparalleled. I mean, the things that you did on that movie were just incredible. We are coming up on a commercial break. Can we come back to this after the break?
Absolutely.
There's so much more to ask about Society. Sure. So we're going to have this word from our sponsors, and we'll be right back.
Hey everyone, Mike Christopher here, the Hare Krishna Zombie from the original Dawn of the Dead. Just want to make sure everybody knows that I'm going to be at Fantasm in Orlando, August 19, 20, and 21. So make sure you're there, and I'll see you then.
Sorry about the motion sickness on that last one. I love him, but man, that. Take your Dramamine.
That's some weird camera work.
Yes, very, very fluid. I'm sure it'll start a trend though. So before the break, we were talking a little bit about Society, and this film was this was different, man. I mean, you have to come up with all of the designs for that. Where does that come from? What? I'd like to say, what kind of drugs were you on during this time?
You would think.
Yes.
You would think. Actually, it's a really interesting story how that all came about. So Woody Keith wrote the script for Brian, and Brian developed the story with him for Society. Woody Keith's original script, I believe, if I remember correctly, was a blood cult kind of a film. It wasn't intended to be what it turned out to be. And Brian wasn't super thrilled with another blood cult film. He felt that there was enough of them out there, and he wanted to do something different with his directorial debut. So I know that he met with George. I'm not sure what other shops he may have met with to do the effects, but I know that when he met with George, he came into our Sun Valley shop. Was it our Sun Valley shop? No, it was there. It was at Berman's. He came in and he had seen a mask that George created. And George for a couple of years ran Monster Maker's Ball on Halloween.
Oh yeah.
And all of the effects people would get together and do their best Halloween costume, their self-made Halloween costumes, for a contest that would win Screaming Mad George's coveted trophy. So with that said, he had this mask that had a hand coming out of it, and it was pulling on the face and stretching like the skin of the face, and it was just sitting, out in the shop. And if I recall correctly, Brian fell in love with that and was talking at length with George about it. So George kind of said, well, what if we do, a Dalenian like kind of effect, like just like this? And that was it. Like he and Brian from that point just developed it. They developed the whole shunting word and all that. They turned it into what it became. And it is definitely something out of the mind of Screaming Mad George. You would think the guy's on something, but he doesn't need any of that. He's weird enough.
Well, it's like you mentioned with H.R. Giger. You were into H.R. Giger. That
very much so.
That mind, that brain works differently than someone that is going to sell insurance.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
yeah, it was always interesting to see his designs and what he would do. But this
George
film was like a perfect example of that. I mean, did we show some of the pictures on this? Because some of them are just so incredible. And this one, I think you said that it was it was named the bedroom. What was that? This one here.
That was in the living room. That's the
living room. Yes.
That's one of the end pieces of the living room, and that's Kevin Reeder in the background and myself prepping that to mold it.
Yes, and you look at the size of that.
Yeah, it's huge. If there's another photo that I think you might have of me finished sculpting on the Judge. Yeah, if you look at all of those pipes behind me, so all of those pipes behind me represent that 1-to-1 scale of the couch with all of those people connected.
Right.
The Judge was just one of those.
Oh, that is unbelievable.
It was
how many pounds of clay was that?
It was massive. If I remember correctly, I'm old now, but if I remember correctly, it was something like 3,400 pounds of clay. It was nuts. It was
that oil-based or
crazy.
wed?
No, it's wed. Yeah, it's all wed. It was all wed. I think we had 2 weeks to sculpt it all.
Yeah.
So George would go in and block those out, and then I would come in and run some detail, and he would come back and run more detail, and then I would go back after that and prep it to mold it, and then cut it apart and take it over and mold it.
Which again,
crazy
another set of skills that you have to have for that.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I got really good really fast with large scale fiberglass molds.
Oh yeah, yeah. And were those all run in foam?
Yeah, they were. They were all foam.
Oh wow.
I
can't even imagine. And
yeah,
you said
it was bananas.
You said that was the Berman place, and you had some other stuff that was going on. And yours is very different from the other film. I don't know if you can say what film it was, but what was it like? You have your stuff that's so outlandish and crazy, and then you have this other project going on that's kind of surreal and comic-y.
Yeah.
I mean, like I said, that's the great time to be in this field.
It was pretty wild, and that was kind of a normal thing in those days too. Like there was a time when I worked at K&B, and at K&B there was 4 or 5 projects going on all at once. Like that's how busy the industry was at the time. It was nuts.
Yeah.
So you could get yourself on 2 or 3 jobs just by going to one shop.
Yeah, yeah, and like you said, they were working concurrently on all this stuff.
Yeah.
But again, it was just a special, different time. You can't describe that to, I don't want to sound like an old man, but I am an old man. You know, the kids nowadays can't understand that.
We
It's
know
just,
from experience because we can't explain it to our
yeah,
hobo.
they don't get it. But it was just such a wonderful, and I guess you could use this word about that time, romantic. It was a very romantic time for special effects as a whole. Pretty much like mid 90s, I think it had that feel.
Yeah, I agree with that. I mean, I feel like the whole romance of it was the fact that you had to be a Renaissance man. I mean, you had to know everything.
Yeah,
You had to know how to cast. You had to know how to paint. You had to know how to sculpt. You had to know, like, you had to do all these things and
Renaissance
quick
men. Yeah,
and on unbelievable timelines. You know, it was like these things had to be knocked out so fast. So, I mean, that was, that's something I'm terrible about now. I start creating something. It takes me forever to create it, but that's because I have my own timeline. I'm not on anybody else's timeline.
yeah, yeah. Well, I don't see you slowing up that much, man. I mean, your stuff, like I said, it's been an inspiration for so many for so long. Even if they didn't know the name Nick Benson, they knew the stuff that you did. And again, for all of us fans, I say thank you in that regard, because it is just phenomenal amount of work and beautiful, memorable work. You did some with Steve Johnson under Big Trouble in Little China, you said, correct?
No, I didn't.
You weren't with him at that point?
No.
Okay, but you were on Dead Heat, right?
I started on Night of the Demons, and then we went straight from that into Dead Heat.
And I definitely want to talk about that, because this film is such an underrated film, but it has so much of the same fingerprint as Big Trouble in Little China and that fun 1980s. I don't know how to describe it. It's like better than a popcorn film.
Yeah, and it had Vincent Price.
Yeah. And
how can you beat that?
Yes.
Talk about being a monster kid that's starstruck.
I can imagine.
That was this guy meeting Vincent Price.
Yeah. Yeah. And that was also like right after, I guess it was right after his heyday on Saturday Night Live. Here comes Hulk Piscopo. You know, he was, by then I don't know what he was eating, but the guy was built like a steel.
He was a monster. Yeah, he was a monster. Yeah. But he was funny as hell.
Got that guy.
Yeah. But I mean, this is just incredible work.
How many nipples?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Got enough nipples.
Yeah. But I mean, that's another thing. When you are, because I know this is going back, and I'm all over the place with this, but I'm fanboying for a minute. Because, there's a cover, a Fangoria cover here. I think we have it on. Did you show that one? And, a film that you're working on, and then you see in a magazine that you probably read cover to cover when you were younger. What went through your mind at that moment? All those little moments of success, those quantum leaps in your career.
Oh, it blows you away. I mean, it really, really does. It feels like when something like that makes it to, well, at least at the time, like Fangoria was a big deal. So was Cinefantastique, and so was, you're about the same age. So
they were my Bibles.
Yeah, they were everything, and if your stuff made it in those, it was a big deal. It was, something to be.
I worked on that.
Yeah, exactly. I actually had a fan. I was at Flashback Weekend last weekend, and I had a fan bring me a Fangoria that had, I think both Nightmare 4 and Society in it. So it had two films that I was part of in there. So that was pretty surreal.
Yeah, these are
still not, even today, looking at that, thinking about that.
Well, I mean, even with Nightmare 4, I know a lot of people give crap to the later issues in the Nightmare on Elm Street. I loved them all. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, it didn't matter if the makeup was a little different, or this one did the makeup and that Berger did the application. I loved them all. It didn't matter to me, and I could appreciate it. But
I think that's a bucket list thing.
Yeah, I mean, that would be a bucket list thing for anyone. And
absolutely,
here you are working on it.
It was for me. It absolutely was for me, because as you know, like at the time, getting on 4, you already have an established franchise.
Yes,
and and at the time, like Freddy was a big deal. and he's still a big deal. And so to me, it was like I was already a fan of the film. So I'm like, God, I'm going to work on a Freddy film. I can't believe I'm going to work on a Freddy film. So yeah, it was wild for me, and it was very humbling in a lot of ways. But at the same time, like with the way that film had its timelines and things to be done in, and the challenges that were posed in it, which were a lot, I'm still very good friends with Mick Strawn, who was the production designer on that film. And, like he had such a huge task to lay out all of those sequences. Yeah, there he is on the right.
Yeah. And we know Blake too. He was on our show in season 1.
Yeah. Blake's
He's
awesome.
a sweetheart.
Blake's awesome. So, yeah, so I mean, it was a big deal for me to get on that film in the first place, and then I got to be part of 2 because I swear there were so many effects artists on that film. I didn't think there was a chance, but
yeah,
I did. I got to work on Freddy's death and Brooke's cockroach transformation. So,
which horrified everyone. That shit. Excuse my French, but oh my God, back in the day, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
And by the time it progresses in the film, spoiler alert, she's in the Roach Motel. Oh my God, dude. Did you know when you were making this that was going to be such an iconic effect?
Well, here's the funny story about that entire sequence. So Mick Strawn was in charge of trying to like wrangle all of us artists, and Mick is a very practical guy, and he's a mechanical effects guy, and being the production designer on the film, he just wants to know how stuff's going to get done.
Yeah.
And Mick tells a story now about how I remember when he came to the shop, but I wasn't an important enough guy to step in and have any part of the meeting. So George is like kind of taking him around and showing him things. And the way that Mick tells it now, it's like he had no idea what George was even talking about. He's like, is this going to work? Is this even going to fly? Is this even going to look good? I have no idea what's going to happen here. He left just not knowing. And he was very frustrated because, not only did George have a heavy Japanese accent, but, when you talk to George, like you're talking to a serious, almost insane artist. He's not your Lehman. You can't have like a Lehman's conversation with him. Yeah. So he's very cerebral and very, very, very strange to most.
Oh yeah.
I knew how to read that, and I knew how to translate that. So I probably should have just stepped in and done a better job with that for Mick, but it wasn't my place at the time. So the great thing was getting on set and doing that sequence, even with Mick, was like, the way that it came out, it turned out really well.
Yes.
It wasn't so much the cockroach that was horrifying. It's this.
Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Coming from, the girls' state with the champion, I went,
yeah.
It
was that response. It was for everyone. And you weren't even.
That's what it was about.
Yeah. But that was,
and again, it's that whole surrealized side of George.
Yeah.
That's like, how can we turn her into a cockroach? This is going to be so much fun.
Yeah. And the thing was about that, again, these kids these days, I am afraid that if they were to try that scene today, they wouldn't do it practical. They'd want to do it CGI. But all this was done with hands and rubber and foam and plastic. It's just unreal.
Like,
yep.
Gelatin.
Yeah. The arm skins that are there in that shot that you showed are gelatin.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
We had a whole bucket of those things so that we could do take after take.
Yeah.
Basically there was fiberglass understructures of the arms on the barbell, and you had splits in here in the elbow portion. You had splits in there where the puppeteers would shoot the cockroach arms through.
Yeah.
So they would just break that through the gelatin skins.
The gelatin.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's the kind of thinking that you had to do back then versus we'll just do it in green screen.
Yes. And that's the think on your feet kind of stuff. Because if I remember correctly, I think it was the day before we were supposed to shoot, Mick still didn't have a concept of how we were doing that weight bench thing. And I think George had him just told him he needed to build basically a fake weight bench because we were putting Brooke underneath it. Mm-hmm. So if you really look at that shot, you can see that it's not the typical weight bench where there's stuff underneath it. She's inside of it. There's actually a box there that her body's actually in. That's entire fake body on top.
Yeah. Yeah. And nobody would have any concept of that.
Only Brooke's head was there.
Yeah. Yeah. But it was so believable. And that's the thing is people say, oh, well, if you had to use high def, you would. But no, I mean, this was just a different time. And that was a classic effect. I mean, there were 3 like big ones that everyone remembers. The motorcycle transformation scene. Of course, the stretched arms thing. That's really iconic. Yeah. And this one. I mean, because everyone is creeped out by bugs to begin with. And then the way that this was executed so flawlessly, Absolutely. It had everyone just rolling. And I remember seeing it originally, like in first run, and I was like, oh my God, this is brilliant.
Right. And what's even cooler is like, no one will ever know this, but like, it didn't really go as well as it could have. Mm-hmm. Like I know Mick had this whole plan for the DP to do a certain kind of shot, and the DP didn't actually do the proper shot when he backed up inside the Roach Motel when it goes from outside to inside. He was supposed to do a move in a certain way that he just never grasped the concept Mick was telling him to do. Oh. So, but like when they did that, I mean, it was still crazy because, like you say, there was no. You would think that the whole thing there was maybe a green screen, which we did have green screen technology at the time. Right. Wasn't that great. Green screen, blue screen. But the way that Mick set that shot up was he built, I don't remember how long that whole Roach Motel hall was for the camera to back up the way that it did. But he had a projection screen at the very end of it that he was controlling a film projector of Freddy's eye live on that set. Yeah. And syncing it to the camera. So, I mean, I look at that shot still and I'm like, oh my God, this guy is amazing.
Yes. Yes. And definitely, like I said, one of those memorable screen scenes that just freaks everyone out for one reason or the other, whether it's the broken limbs or the roach. It was just, I can go on all the time, but I'm going to slow down on that one. But just kudos to that entire team on that one.
Yeah, there's a lot of incredible guys working on that.
Yeah, just incredible. Yes.
Where?
Sorry, technical stuff going on. That's okay. So yeah, the thing about the makeup that you did, it was iconic. It was incredible, but it didn't end there. And I do want to talk to you about some other things. I guess we're coming up on a commercial break. I think that's what I'm being told. Okay. So when we come back, we're going to talk a little bit about your relationship with Mick Strawn later on, because of Blake Best and everything, because there is a great book that they did. And I always give Blake a plug where I can, because that is just an incredible thing. Out of print, at least as far as I know. But we'll talk about that a little bit more if you're up for that.
Absolutely.
All righty. After this break, we'll be right back.
Hi, this is Jackal Howard, and I'm truly looking forward to being in Orlando from the 19th to the 21st at Fantasm. Hope everybody shows up. Let's have a good time. Thanks, guys.
In 1931, Paramount Pictures released its version of Robert Louis Stevenson's classic tale, Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Stage and screen leading man Frederick March brought a realness to the film, and his Mr. Hyde featured 3 distinct phases of de-evolution as the film progressed. The makeup of Norbert A. Miles and Wally Westmore stunned audiences, as each time we see Hyde, he becomes more animalistic. But it was Dr. Jekyll's first transformation that was most memorable. Incidentally, it became the first horror film to receive an Academy Award. In this single-shot, uncut scene, we see Dr. Jekyll's transformation as the stage lights shift from green to red, and the character seems to transform before the viewer's eyes, without the use of the clunky lap dissolve technique. This old stage illusion became one of cinema's most innovative effects in the 30s. Thanks for watching, and please give us a follow if you enjoyed this video.
You are totally watching Monster Manor TV. Keep watching.
Okay, thank you for waiting through the long break. We're back with Nick Benson, guy that I am kind of starstruck with here. But hope I'm not fanboying too much, ma'am.
I'm no better than anybody. I'm just a guy that had a cool job.
Well, it inspired guys like me, so I do appreciate that, and I'm sure I speak for everyone when, again, I thank you for the contributions to horror cinema back in those days, because they definitely fueled a lot of fires in people, so I appreciate that.
It's nice to hear that, because keeping it alive is what it's all about. If we don't do that, if we don't foster those relationships and teach guys like you that craft, you're not gonna, the craft will die.
Exactly. I mean, we were kind of mentored by people like Dick Smith and Rick Baker, who were very open with their sharing. So that's kind of the mission of Monster Manor. It's not just a show, it's kind of a lifestyle. Whether it's the studio stuff that we do, we try to push forward that love of the classics. And I would consider, in the 80s, that's the neoclassics, and we extend pretty much, like I said, to about mid 94, 95. But it was just such a special, magical time, and we try to always, extend that.
Yeah.
So so before the break, we were talking a little bit about your relationship with Mick Strawn, and that you've been with him pretty much as friends since your first experiences with him. Including the book Behind the Screams with Blake Best, which has since sold out. I mean, you can't find that anymore. I tried. But a cool thing about your relationship with him is you're actually going to be at Phantasm next week with your buddy Mick. So that's going to be a cool little chance to get back together and chat, huh? Yeah,
Mick and I are very good friends.
Yeah.
We're going to be doing several things at Phantasm together, I believe. So, yeah, you got to come and find out.
Yeah, I've heard
we have some surprises.
Yeah, I can't wait. Well, if you need any help with anything, let me know, man.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think we're all looking forward to Phantasm. It has been a really rough few years, so I think now that the shows are opening up, and the Monster Fests everywhere you look, they're coming back. So it's definitely a chance to get out there and preach the gospel of the rubber, which I absolutely love. And I wish that we could get back to more of the practical effects of things.
Yeah.
But so where can people find you on the web when they're not watching your movies?
Well, I'm on Facebook and Instagram. I don't know that I can manage more than those two. So yeah. I just stick to those two. I'm on Facebook as Nick J. Benson Official, and on Instagram, Nick Benson 427.
Yes. And again, next week, you're going to be at Phantasm, so they can go to Phantasm Official and check out all of the stuff. I think that even under your name, if they click on your picture, they'll take you to a jump page that has all of your information, your IMDb links, all of that. And then any of the stuff that you're going to be doing is also going to be on that page. So if they're looking and saying, oh, what's Nick going to do with this show? It's all going to be there too, because I'll be looking, and I'm going to have a busy schedule, but I want to catch some of the panels that you're going to be on. So
yeah, that should be fun.
So any parting words of intellect from the ages, because we've been around a while, but what would you say to inspire some of the newer generation?
Well, I actually talked to a lot of people at between these conventions and everything, and I've talked to a lot of aspiring artists, and the best advice I can give is just stick with what you love. I mean, if it's something that you're passionate about, just do it. Honestly, just do it. I wasn't formally trained. I didn't go to school for it. I didn't, I just happened to have a knack for doing it, and fell into it. So I can't say that, I mean, nothing wrong with going to school. There's nothing wrong with getting an education in it. But if you are passionate about it, so something Steve Wang told me once was just, if you're not happy with your sculpture, just keep sculpting.
Yeah. I mean, that's boy, that's deep. That's deep.
Yeah, it really is. It doesn't seem like it, but it really is. It's like
that's an analogy for life. Sheesh.
Yeah, it really is.
It makes me feel real insignificant now. Yeah, that beats the old adage, throw blood at it.
And it really came from me saying to Steve, it's guys like you that make me just want to quit, because Steve is just the most amazing sculptor I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah.
And there's another guy that was in the business for a long time that I was around named Moto Yoshihata.
Yeah.
And Moto was an incredible sculptor, and I used to tease him all the time about like I quit.
Yeah.
But those guys just encouraged me. All they did was encourage me to keep sculpting. You'll refine you'll refine everything. It's all about just keep doing it.
Honestly, I think that's what made them great, is that they wanted to instill that greatness in others, and to push people on to do the best they could do, which I just adore that generation of sculptor and creators. I can't even just say sculptor, because they did so much more than that.
Oh yeah.
Just like you are a creator. You're not just a sculptor. You're not just a finisher. You are a creator. So again, thank you for that.
Love doing it.
All I can say is I can't wait to see you at Phantasm. I hope that we do get to see each other, because it's going to be busy for both of us, I'm sure. Yeah. But definitely check out our guests' IMDb page as well. That will fill in all the blanks that we didn't get to talk about, because again, I knew this was going to be a fast hour.
Yeah, it really has gone by quick.
Yes, and we got to get together over a beer or something like that and just chat about life in general, because you are a fascinating individual, and I really appreciate everything that you do, my friend.
Oh, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. And it is the fans and guys like you that really keep me doing it. I mean, I really retired from it a long time ago, but it's got talking to guys like you and going to these conventions and having people talk to me about it that inspired me to keep doing it.
Yeah, I mean, one thing we didn't get to was a deck art, which this one here I just had to pull because I loved it so much. Do we have it in the list?
The skateboard, yeah.
That is such a throwback to 50s horror, 50s sci-fi horror.
Yeah, I did that for an autism. They were doing all skateboard deck art for an Artists for Autism thing, and everybody does the puzzle piece with this or that, and while that's important because of what it stands for me it was all about, like, they were auctioning these things off, so it was important for me to do something that would really stand out. Yeah,
and that speaks on a lot of different levels. I just love that piece. So whatever you find your hands to do, man, keep doing something, because I love seeing it. And I am honestly going to follow you with great fervor now. And I adore you, man. Thank you for taking the time to come on.
Oh, thank you guys. I really enjoyed being here, and I would love to come on again sometime.
Oh, absolutely. Anytime. Believe me. Even if it's just, hey, let's chat. It's really been fascinating, and I appreciate it, sir.
Awesome.
So that was our good friend Nick Benson, which please, if you're in the area, if you're in this lower, part of the eastern side of the United States, please come to Phantasm. It's next week. This time we'd already be done with the day pretty much. But yeah, phantasmofficial.com. Check it out. Get your tickets. You can look at all of the lineups of what's going on there, and all the other great guests. And definitely our friend Nick Benson will be there. So, and Mick Strawn. So if you're into the Nightmare series, perfect opportunity. You want a Halloween series? You got them too. Just announced a couple hours ago is our good friend. I don't know if we have a slide for it.
No,
I can say it though, can I?
I don't see why not. We
So
don't have a slide for it. No.
I thought we were going to have a slide for it. So this guy, if you'll remember, he was episode 1 of season 2. Douglas Tate was just announced as well, and he played Jason in the last water stunt scene of Freddy vs. Jason. He was also in Halloween Kills as one of the stunt Michaels that gets hit by the police car, I believe it was. And if you have had your head totally under the rock, you might have even seen him as Sasquatch in the Jack Link's commercials. And then he's been peppered through Marvel movies and sci-fi movies and Hellboy movies and everything else. So he's just been announced as well. And he's a good friend of ours over on TikTok. No promises, but he might actually show up on our TikTok live stream that starts at 11 once we wrap up and calm down from the night of meeting a hero of mine, Nick Benson. So we'll come down a little bit, get some coffee in us, and then we'll be back on our wonderful show on the TikTok with Boris. So I think that's it for tonight on my end. I'm going to turn this over to my good friend, the man in the bowler hat, Boris.
But there's different tonight. There's a table, and on the table, then the Dracula. That's Dracula fighting crime. But he kind of look like the Batsman without the horns. Hello, Boris here. This is what happens when they leave stuff lying around in the Fantasm Mega household. Boris pick it up, but he's gonna. Boris like the Dracula. Fensterberg actually printed this out. Created this from scratch and printed it out. And then that's why you got a nice Dracula going. Look at my armpits. But Boris gonna hand this off to the producer lady, the booth, because you don't want to break it.
Okay, but you forgot that you got to do a thing.
What thing? What the
disclaimer?
Oh, disclaimer. But what season? What season? What? Where we doing? Okay,
2.5.
2.5. All right, everything come out of the mouth here is Boris's fault. Blame Boris. Don't blame the fence, the household, Monster Manor, Little Monster Manor Kitties, the neighbors, Dr. Peggy Petting Zoo, which is actually open. They found the other gator. It ate another gator, so that's why. There's gay deception, but it's open now, and 3 chickens for $1. You can have the kiddies hand feed with a hook. And Murray, pui on him. Murray took the sponsorship back. So pui, don't buy no shovels for Murray. Go to Home Depot. Boris is going to do the fight thing tonight. But he lost the box after last time. And so he's going to diverge. The Verge do some kind of against type, because this is what, Wednesday? Well, no, Friday.
Friday.
Everything to Phantasm kind of melt in the last 2-3 weeks. It kind of melt into a big mush ball of yuck. And Boris had the plague earlier this week. He got the old country flu which all you can smell is turnips, and you want to have broth that's blue. So he's thinking about stuff, and his humanity is leaking out of his body, and he, eating Vicks to try to stop the cough. First of all, Boris got to say that every week you get to come here after the last 15 minutes of the show and give Professor Megan, the producer lady, problems. That's his thing. He come in, Professor Barker this, Professor Bester that, producer lady suck. He makes things, but really,
wait a minute. Since when do I suck?
when you with the button.
Well, that's not my button. That's Fenster Bastard's button.
Well, we're not going to place blame on anybody right now. And then you throw the shoe.
I do that.
The shoe come out of nowhere.
But look,
they got like.
But look, no shoes today.
That's nice. That's real nice. With Boris Lucky Kiss smell.
These are clean socks. They should smell like game.
Oh, by the way, dog barf on the floor over there.
Oh, but she's got to stop eating leaves.
Yeah, Boris kind of playing the name.
She's starting to like you, and when you open the door, when you come in.
Yeah, you walk in the black.
She wants to play.
Boris make a little sandcastle. What?
You're a little out of focus.
Boris actually is not in focus as tribute to Douglas Tate, who was the Sasquatch. And Sasquatch get the blurry photos. So, Mr. Tate, this is for you, Boris, blurry. Actually, he may be blurry with the old country sickness.
Let me see if I can fix this real quick.
Okay.
Editing entrance. This is live.
Boris
TV,
blind.
People.
Oh,
this is live, people. Look at what we have to deal with. But we got to see you beautiful.
So anyway,
focus.
Anyway, Boris can say this out of focus because nobody really wants to see Boris anyway in focus because Boris he's not the looker, right? Boris do speed dating and they kind of get up right before the bell. Nope. So anyway, Boris was thinking about it, and honestly, Boris got to say, the last year and a half is fun, giving offense to Benson, a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, you suck and all this, but really, if you watch what the man did the last month, and what he does for the show, he doesn't sleep. He always on the iPad. The Boris come over, say read the emails, but the man come up with emails with the producer lady and producer lady too. They come up with emails. Had to make sure, but the Boris ignore them. They said Boris come to the meeting. Boris come late. Bring half a Munchkin donut. Here, this for you. Because remember, if you bring donuts, you got brought donuts. You're not late. But honestly, this whole show would not be what it was or what it is without Fenstermaker and Miss Fenstermaker over here doing everything. Because Boris come in, jack around 15 minutes, and he go home. All the set and stuff, Boris get to leave. He go to the master thing, and he watching like Tubi, what they got to clean up.
Yeah, but then you do the tiki talks afterwards, and you spend hours on doing that for our fans.
But see, that's the thing. Boris, that's ego for Boris. But Fenstermaker don't get enough credit, and Boris kind of is gonna apologize, Scott, because he give you way too much crap, and you do way too much work, and the producer lady too. So this is the one thing Boris got to change your heart like Scrooge with the 3 ghosts, but there's more like 11 ghosts. And Boris, when Boris died, nobody come to the funeral, which is great because they put him in the bouncy house. There's a body in the bouncy house, and when they come out, everybody bounce and nothing. So what they did was they put Boris in a coffin and they played Pop Go the Weasel, and then cleaned the church out.
I thought we were gonna cremate you, and then like
that's after Pop Go the Weasel.
Air cannon things and shoot.
Yes.
Little poofs of.
Put Boris in the big fan.
Ashes and be like.
Yes.
Boris says hi.
Yes. And but first, after the Boris died, you're gonna put him in a Superman suit and drop him out of a helicopter over Disney. He's a blap. But anyway, all seriousness, the 2 people you see before Boris, they bust the ass for the show constantly. They don't sleep. This is the house they mess up and everything like that. They don't get nearly the credit that they deserve from Boris or the respect. So Boris is going to apologize because he wants to turn over a new leaf and be kind of gentle, Boris, or at least not such an a-hole where you get the hate mail. Because Boris like the hate mail. It's just, sometimes it make you think. Like, hey, maybe the problem is Boris. And they gave him a start without the Craigslist ad. Boris just be pretty much hanging out watching Love Boat reruns on Pluto. And there's only so many Love Boat reruns when you go Charo need to get the hell off the boat. And that Dr. Bricker got probably herpes. Because, I mean, that got lech. Like, really, that's unprofessional. You ever see that? You go on the cruise now, and the doctor like, hey, let's have the sexy time. You get fired.
That's malpractice.
It's not, well, malpractice is he give you the wrong shot for the herpes he give you. Yeah. He give you, like, you know, instead of what, you know, like, instead of what is it, Zovirax, he give you azithromycin and Rocephin, which is more for like the gonorrhea. With the drip. Yes.
Honey, you got some schmutz.
But that's Boris's skin falling off. You think?
It was a rough week.
It's a rough week. Boris taking Binax test and 3 lines come out. It's like, what the hell?
So on that note, does that mean that you're not going to give me a hard time when I ask you to do the promos for appearances?
No, Boris going to read the promos. Going to be a good person. Read the promos for Phantasm, because he's contractually obligated to till next week. Damn you, Tony Greco. Anyway, what? And we're going to do Phantasm. Phantasm Sunday morning from about the first hour of opening. You come by the booth, and we're going to have Mexican dessert, custard. Latin custard, and then we're going to talk about pretty much Blantasm, where it's pretty much everything. How is it? It's okay. Do you like it? It's all right. Spamtasm Saturday night. We're going to celebrate the first day. I said with Mr. Jack Halloran with potted meat.
Boris, just about next week is when you're going to learn how to say it correctly, though. Phantasm.
It always happens.
No, Boris apologized to you, Scott, and then the Amber Bruce lady. He didn't put the Tony Greco because Boris got to go up against boobies at the show. You know, the burlesque. Scooby Doo, but who the hell put Scooby Doo burlesque in the horror show?
Hey.
What?
Breathe.
Boris gonna breathe, and then the dating show, Vampire Dating. First of all, Guillermo ain't got the date because Guillermo don't want to date.
Boris.
What?
Some people actually like the burlesque, though.
Okay, well,
each their own.
They have like the burlesque. Boris is going to crap on it right now.
I would put the challenge out that you're just sore because your show is right.
Because the last year Boris had Comedy Gold, and then what happened?
Well, then put the challenge out there. Say
Boris going to Boris challenge to get the cease and desist letter from Universal.
Why don't you offer like a prize or something?
No, Boris not
gonna.
Comes
to Boris's show, gets a ticket.
You're going to get. You know what the prize is? The prize is you're going to see gold, because Boris work on the Krypts with Phil Fondacaro for Dracula.
Your boobies.
Boris has to take a shower fully clothed. That's Marion County and Orange County law that Boris have to wear 1920s bathing suit. That's why you want to do OnlyFans, because you wear the whole bathing suit and like the hat and maybe a scarf on the beach. You're like, and then the thing is what you don't see. That's the thing. Everybody wants to see is the mystery. But what's under this? What hideous malfeasance is under the Boris thing? Like
is that
Michelin
why the
Man.
ladies way back had to wear the collar up to the jaw?
No, men back then men couldn't be. We were all horn dogs back then. You see ankle and everybody got the stiffy running around the beach, depositing leavings and holes and stuff.
All right, we've gone too far. Did we scroll to the wrong side of TikTok?
No, that's PG-13. You can say that, and you're gonna edit that crap out anyway for the Tingler, because pretty much you had one hell of an interview with Ms. Nick Benson. And by the way, that man, first of all, everybody, all the I think it's mandatory for everybody in special effects that facial hair. Because
a gray goatee.
A goatee.
And the black rectangle glasses.
That dude got the beard that's cool worthy of like the dwarves from like the Moria. And that man, the roach thing was awesome. Boris saw that in the theater with a girl almost threw up on him. That's great. Boris wish he could do that to old people. The Walmart to put the card out in the middle. He's like, hey, put them in the thing.
Or like so the Boris lady who wears the thing on just her nose.
Oh, God. Wear the mask.
Boris, tolerance, breathe.
Boris got a lot of anger this week. But then he can't vent it at you anymore. Well, the Pooey list is pretty much humanity at this point.
Yeah. Only Murray's on the Pooey
list. Murray is on the he's always on the Pooey list, but then we're going to put humanity on the Pooey list.
Oh, and the guy with the drunk chicken. He's on the pool.
Oh yeah, the chicken on the outside. There's a dumb rooster in the middle of the night. It's like, hey, you blind bastard. It's dark out, but technically a full moon is the sunlight, and that's another thing. Okay, where's the Dracula? We're gonna have Dracula. The Dracula wandered around, and this is what get Boris. Dracula wandered around this full moon. Whatever. No, but you Boris, you mouthing something dirty to the wife, probably.
That's producer stuff.
Oh, sorry. So anyway.
No, just go on.
Anyway, Boris, you got Dracula, right? And he's gonna sneak up. There's somebody hanging out, the dirt, and Dracula's gonna sneak up into the full moon. Okay, now physics. If you learn physics, so you watch Neil deGrasse Tyson. Boris watch a lot of Neil deGrasse Tyson and Cosmos with Carl Sagan this week. The moon has no ambient light of itself. It's a rock. It's gray. But what bounces off the moon? Scott, what bounces off the moon?
Light, reflected light from the sun.
The sun.
And sticks to you, and that's how you
And what can Dracula go out in? The sunlight. So what he doing moping around in the full moon, which is reflected sunlight, gonna burn his ass. Think about that, Bram Stoker and all the Dracula movie people. That's a plot hole. You can't have a Dracula in the full moon because he bursts into flames.
That's true.
And don't give Boris the crap of UV light and all that crap. If the man can't see himself in silver and the mirror and everything and the camera, the moonlight, they're gonna bang him and then turn him into crispy critter. But this is nice. Is this for sale?
Not as of yet, but yes, soon.
Okay.
If people are interested.
If you want to buy this, call the festival. This is nice. It's like Bela Lugosi showing the armpits when they got the look. Right, God.
Moving
That
on.
was like, I'm going to swoop. But that's all Boris got. He wanted to apologize, say he's a kind of gentle Boris, and pretty much filled the time until we got to go to TikToks for live because
Okay, well, why don't you tell them about the thing for the veterans since you're on a kick of...
Okay, well, after the Phantasm...
Oh, you did it right! Holy moly!
Yes, Phantasm next week, 19th, 20th, 21st, at the Doubletree Hotel.
Oh, right. It took all month.
You said Phantasma.
But after the Phantasm.
Phantasm first.
Phantasm.
That's what he said, booty traps.
Booby trap. That's what Boris said, booby trap. No top about Dr. Jones. Anyway, Boris forget what he was. Okay. Anyway, go to Doubletree Hotel. You're going to find it. Everybody going to be dressed like Michael Myers. There's going to be some weirdo dressed like Annabelle. Or there's going to be with the lady from the Saw movies. You're going to everybody have the trap on the head. Follow them, and you're going to find. And you find that table. You got Nan, and Emma
like
Muntz.
bread.
Emma Muntz.
Yeah.
And the man, was it John something or other, fall off the log from King Kong.
Yeah.
Jack O'Halloran himself, all 9 feet of him.
Yeah.
And
He's not 9
that
feet.
man
He's
is
like
tall.
7 feet.
That's still tall.
He could play pro basketball.
Maybe he did.
He did.
He did. He was boxing too. He punched you in the face. And
I wouldn't want him to punch me.
He was inducted into the California Boxers Hall of Fame.
Boxer Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Okay, so after Phantasm,
We're gonna go to the trunk or treat at the what is it? Where's the little thingy that the fence man usually uses for the cheating?
I gave it to.
It's in the international
House of Pancakes.
No.
You go to all the Rudy Tooty Fresh Fruity breakfast. Oh no!
Oh no! This one's in Merritt Island in the mall.
Merritt Island in the mall, with is sponsored by Ruth Rothschild's business. Come on, friends, help me out here.
The backyard.
Backyardigans.
Superstore.
Oh, Backyard Superstore.
Yep.
Sorry, Boris Bucina. There's too much Vicks and Robitussin. Backyard Superstore. You can buy like backyard stuff, like a pool, a jacuzzi. You want to make your own soup. But you go to Mr. Rothschild, you need the Backyard Superstore, and they're gonna benefit the veterans' graves where they clean up and maintain old veterans' graves in cemeteries. Because apparently the government got better things to do with the money, like pay Nancy Pelosi to get the facelift. And then we got what? Oh, they got trunk or treat. So if you want to get rid of the ugly kid, you can put him in the trunk and get some candy. It's a buyback like guns. You give the ugly kid in the trunk, and they give you a Mars bar.
No, you cannot say that we're trading children.
No trading children.
You're not allegedly. How about that?
Not putting children in trunks of cars.
Okay, in the van with the candy. And Borders, you got to tell Borders. Listen, Borders, we're going to see the candy before we get in the damn van, okay? With the puppy. Don't tell Borders it's candy. Then Borders get in there, and then you try, like, will this rag smell like? It's like, no. Borders been there before.
We're not sniffing rags. Nobody has any rags.
No, not right. Borders is a nebula. It's nice.
Stop it.
Okay, but then what do we do? We got the
cramps.
We got the Mr. Krampus con. The Krampus con with the guy that put your kid. Now you could give him the Krampus because Krampus is the Avenger of Christmas. When you put what you laugh is Germanic. Krampus is a demon that live on the other side of the North Pole, and he kind of like the anti-Santa Claus. If you got the smart mouth kid where Santa Claus go, oh, you gotta be good. Krampus go like Krampus don't play that damn game. He gonna grab your kid, put him in the bag, and beat the hell out of him with sticks. And if you look, there's a Krampus parade over in Europe or Scandinavia, and they scare the hell out of the little kiddies, man. There's like 100 of them, and they walk through the street, and the kids crap themselves. You got to see it. It's on the YouTubes. Oh, but Krypt, that's gonna what?
They hit him with reeds.
Yes, Rex Reed.
December 4th through
2nd through the 4th.
Which is right before the actual Krampus knock.
Yes, Krampus knocked like December 11th, but the Krampus pregame.
Yeah,
and that's going to benefit Krampus beating your kid.
Yes,
and that's nice. We're going to go out to Space Coast and see that.
A lot of cool new guests too showing up for that. So
yes, they're going to post it soon. And next year we're going to be in South Carolina. Well, hopefully Boris will be, but Fantasm ain't going to be in South Carolina.
So you keep behaving like this, we'll definitely take it. But if you pee in my neighbor's bushes again, she's a sweet, sweet woman.
No, that one, not the one over here.
The other ones, okay. Yeah, you can pee in there one.
There's a for sale sign. Boris did that.
You can pee in the gas tank for all I care.
Okay, but there's a for sale sign. Boris done that's open season. What? They're not going to post a ring camera. Boris going to do his business. What? Boris say I'm sorry to you, not the neighborhood.
That's
okay,
true.
So we're going to South Carolina.
Going to South Carolina in September to do what? The South Carolina con. Not this one. Next.
SCHorror.com.
SCHorror.com. And there's going to be guests there too. Maybe Jack Howard. We don't know. Maybe he like us enough to take a road trip. But they're going to have to ride in like, the pickup truck or something because that man tall.
Yeah.
Or maybe he got his own car. Or maybe he's going to ride in that little window thing with his friend.
I don't know what he's not going to do, unfortunately, is fly because Superman shoved him in that red box and,
Yeah, ruined everything with that.
Yeah, with the red.
Maybe he used the, what's his face?
The giant cellophane.
The giant cellophane as a glider.
And I was rooting for him. That's the weird thing. He was the bad guy, and I was always rooting for Non.
Oh, Boris loved the fact that, like, everybody got the powers first, and then Non's like, oh. Yeah. Like, with the thing, the lady get bit by the snake, and she'd, like, fry it. And and then the guy from Priscilla Queen of the Desert, General Zod, come up and go, oh. And he zap it, and then Non pick up a stick. And we in negotiations with the stick to come to Phantasm to reunite with Mr. O'Halloran. So you may see a tender reunion between stick and actor.
Okay, Boris, you're at an hour and 20 minutes. You can talk more about.
Well, yeah, we got to
go.
Yeah, where are we going to be? Tell them the
what? 11 o'clock. We're on the TikToks at 11 o'clock. And
who might be joining us?
Oh yes, we got the famed. He's a Sasquatch. His name Bert. Bert the Sasquatch. Oh no, you meant Douglas Tate.
Douglas Tate.
Yeah, his name is Duck. No,
it's Sasquatch's real name is Bert.
Yes.
There's one in Silver Springs.
Blurry Bert.
Yeah, that's Blurry Bert. That's cruel. I mean, that's picking on him.
All right, say good night.
No, that's like calling kid Four Eyes with the glasses. He can't help that he's blurry.
Okay.
Well, then he got the poop in the fur. Good night, everybody. Oh, and again, 3-for-1 chickens at Dr. Peggy Penn Zoo.
You have created a monster and it will destroy you.
She's alive! Alive!
I am Dracula.
Dracula. Dracula. Hey, Monster Kids. Thanks for hanging out for another episode of Monster Manor. Do us a favor, though, and hit the bell to get reminders of when we add new content. Subscribe to our channel, and while you're waiting for new shows, check out our website at www.monstermanor1313.com. New content at least every other week, sometimes even more often. Like and follow our Facebook page as well for other content. And lastly, if you want to help us out, check out our Patreon under Monster Manor with Scott Fenster. Thanks for hanging out until the end.